Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the seminar today. We're going to have a seminar on food rights and the COP15 Agreement. We're going to discuss a little bit what happened last year in December in the COP15. And today we have a guest, Mariann, who will present a little bit about the COP15 and also talk about food sovereignty. This seminar is prepared by ForumCiv and Friends of the Earth in collaboration with Macton over Macton. My name is Gloria Jimwaga. I'm a policy advisor for Africa Groupina, and I'll be your moderator for today. Welcome. Before we start our seminar and the presentation, we will go through the logistics part in terms of how can you participate online in asking questions, but also in the audience here. And we'll have Ludwig, who will give us a little bit of information. And after that, we'll have a short introduction about the organizer and why we are here today. And Johan will do that. Welcome, Ludwig.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you all here on behalf of ForumCiv. We're super happy to have you all here and to see so many here on site as well. So many people checking in online. And for the ones who don't know, ForumCiv is member-based. Our members are Swedish organizations, and together we are Sweden's biggest platform for civil society. And Friends of the Earth, who is organizing this event together with us, is one of our members. And of course, a special welcome to our guest, Mariann, and our moderator, Gloria. We're so happy that you have taken your time and you're here with us today. The session will be around 1.5 hours, ending at 1:30. And we will have a Q&A session after a presentation. So the people here on site will be able to ask questions, and the people online can post questions in the chat, and we will bring them up here on site. If you need to go to the bathroom, you can go out that door and just to the main entrance, and to the right there's bathroom. Emergency exits is outside the office entrance, the staircase to the right. And after the seminar, I will send a Mentimeter link with a short evaluation, and I hope that you will take time to answer that. And once again, happy to see so many of you here, and I will give the word to Jorun.
Thank you, Ludwig. So my name is Jordan Hellman. I work at Jordens Vänner, or Friends of the Earth Sweden. And as Ludwig said, we are one of 200 members of ForumCiv and also one of the organizers for this seminar today. Friends of the Earth is a big network, a global network with member groups in 70 countries and 5 continents. We work for environmental and climate justice, and we emphasize quite a lot on the importance of local communities, autonomy, and rights. And that is also why we talk about food sovereignty as an important concept. Food sovereignty is a concept that comes from the peasant movement in the global south. And it is a concept that is about local communities' rights to define their own food systems, both production and consumption. It is about the right to and control of the means of production, seeds, land, water. And it also acknowledges and stresses the importance of local practices, culture, and traditional knowledge. In Sweden, we have a food sovereignty network with a couple of organizations that some are here represented today. We have Framtidsjorden, FIAN, and Africa Groupina. We call ourselves Makten över maten, Power Over Food, or the Food Sovereignty Network of Sweden. And we strongly believe that food sovereignty is a key solution to many of the challenges that we face today as a global community in terms of climate change, biodiversity loss, hunger, and also regression in democracy, stability, and peace. And we see this as a very relevant perspective, both for international and national policy. Currently, we work with bringing awareness about this declaration, the UN DROP, as we call it, the UN Declaration on Rights for Peasants and other people working in rural areas, I think. Yeah. So we have prepared this translated version to Swedish, that is also nicely illustrated. We have a couple with us today if you would like to have one or take a closer look. And if you want to have more information also about our network, you can just talk to us after the seminar. Yeah. So thanks again for being here today and warmly welcome. And I'll give that word over to you again, Gloria. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction and the talk about food sovereignty and its importance towards our biodiversity. Now we will have a presentation from Mariann Bassey. She's a lawyer and activist working with environmental rights, land rights, and has been working with the Friends of the Earth Africa as a coordinator, but also has been the coordinator of AFSA, which is the Alliance for Food Sovereignty. And throughout, we have been talking, and you said that the organization has been in more than 52 countries within Africa. So we are really, really keen to hear your perspective today on food sovereignty, but also your reflection since you attended the COP15 in Canada. We're really looking forward to your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, technology, I get hooked here. I'm trying to navigate it. Sorry.
No worries.
Oops. I'm sorry. Presentation. I need help. It's okay. But don't worry. So I have just 20 minutes. I'll try to run through it. And I hope you can, I don't know, it's not reflecting, so people can.
Oh, but you can continue while
Yeah,
they
so
set up.
but it would have been better if you could see the pictures from it. Okay, go ahead. So I was at COP15 and I just wanted to give insight on what happened there, because I know that there have been some media reports, and of course, they will want people to hear what they want them to hear. But as civil society, we have a different view of what actually took place. I have some photos which would have helped to give some insight. And if you, after you leave here, try to read the opening remarks of the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, where he said, COP, that it shouldn't be dreams of deluded billionaires. I mean, CBD, it's Convention on Biological Diversity, but it was more like, yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. That billionaires, of people who have money, taking over the COP. The picture there was, the first picture there was a banner where some people, group in Montreal, put at the building of the CBD where they said biodiversity versus billionaire, and we demonstrating to say corporations get out of COP15. So like I said, there were a lot of words that should be, in fact, magnified that was said by the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. One of them was, corporations are emptying our world of its natural gifts and natural resources. He said we are threatening nature, we are treating nature like a toilet paper, and ultimately we are committing suicide by proxy. And the sad truth is that we've made a mess of our world. We cannot pass the buck to our children to clean it up. And again, I like this, forget the deluded dreams of some billionaires. There is no planet B, and there is no planet billionaires. Now, there was a mixed bag of soothing and troubling pieces from the COP. There were some victories, and some very bad things really happened. The critical principle of justice and precaution was lost at the COP. We have billionaires and biotech companies speaking through some delegates who basically hijacked most of the deliberations. We have an army of corporations and philanthropicapitalists lobbying overtly and sometimes directly and indirectly to have their interests protected. And it was really very bad. The good news was that there are 23 targets that were being followed at the COP15. I just followed the one that is relevant to the food sovereignty and the people that we represent back at home. The good thing was agroecology. I mean, Jordens was introducing this some minutes ago. agroecology in harmony with nature, not against it, that respects the right of the people who protect and produce food, made its way into the text. But of course, a country like Brazil would not have it. They wanted sustainable intensification on it before agroecology. Forget the word sustainable. There's nothing sustainable about the agriculture the biotech company is trying to introduce, because it's all about monocultures, high inputs, and of course, all toxic things that we don't want to promote. The good thing again was reducing the overall risks from pesticides and reducing it by half. And that was target 7, then target 16. There were goals that of having a global food waste. But of course, if you have things like sustainable intensification, it makes nonsense of all these good targets. Another thing was the word nature positive was killed. We didn't have it there. Even though it looks nature positive, it's a good word, but there's a whole lot of things that are not right with what they're trying to promote in that. And another good thing that happened in COP was we sustained the moratorium on geoengineering. This is a large scale of experiments being done, in large scale in the oceans, at sea, in the land, that it will not just affect the country where these experiments are carried on, but other countries. So we were happy that the moratorium was sustained. I'm just going to run through it. It's clouding, it's in the sea, it's like grabbing a planetary thermostat and deciding, oh, I want this, I want that. So in a nutshell, that shows it. The bad news, horizon scanning was edited out of the test. This means that we are saying, if there are new and emerging technologies like synthetic biology, gene drives, gene editing, geoengineering, if they are coming, let communities, let indigenous people, but most times when these things happen, it's indigenous people that are going to be affected. Let them have a say. Let them be able to say, oh, we want this technology in our country. We want that, or we don't want this. So let them have like assessment platforms where we can have a risk and assessment. Do we want it or not? These groups, delegates from biotech-friendly, corporate-friendly governments did know, and it was completely left out of the text. We even had a group singing Jimmy Reeves' song. I can see it clearly. We sang it at the thinking they would hear us. We sang ourselves. Some of us don't have a voice. I sang and sang, but of course, they were not hearing us, and it was removed from the text. Another thing that was removed and shocking too was the word precaution. We won't want precaution. Everything has a precautionary principle. Many years ago, when the Catania Protocol on Biosafety was negotiated, developing countries like Africa, some countries in Asia, we knew that we're going to be recipients of this technology. So we wanted something like a precautionary principle, which says where there is doubt, hold the brakes, don't proceed, make sure that this will not harm the people, the planet, the animals in it. But shockingly, everything was edited out of the test. And of course, throughout the COP, biotech and business billionaires were busy impacting the negotiations and doing things. Well, there's another big thing that came out, target known as 30 times 30. There's going to be a short video at the end of this presentation. It will be shared to our online participants. Please watch it. It will explain whether you think it's a good or a bad target. So I don't want to influence this, but if you ask me, I will say it is not very good, because basically it's saying that they're going to conserve 30% of our water and 30% of our land. But where are they going to get this 30% from? These are, they call it protected areas. Are they really protected areas? These areas that communities interact with, get their medicine, food. If you're going to conserve it, where do you want them to go to? Like I said, I don't want to say much about it. We'll watch that at the end of the video, that you will decide whether it's a good target or not. This video was made by Survival International, and the voiceover was made by Comrade Nemo, who happens to be my dad. So you're free to watch it. It's called The Big Green Lie. Now, food sovereignty, I don't want to go into it. It has already been explained. It's the right of the people to decide what they want, the food they want, how they want, and culturally acceptable, what is right, the respect for people on how they produce their food. And on it, it's agroecology. Agroecology is agriculture that works in harmony with nature, that respects the right of our people to save food and their knowledge to do this. That there are 13 principles of agroecology: recycling, animal health, participation, fairness, synergy. So these are all principles of agroecology that they don't want, that these countries, they don't want in the CBD. I mean, it will shock you that why won't you want something as beautiful as people who produce the food that we eat, that nourish the planet, should have something that protects them and respects them? I mean, you go to companies, you have the CEOs, they are respected. These people are in the farms, toiling their lives away, feeding the people, nourishing us, and they don't want them protected. They want it out of the CBD. So agroecology is a typical example. There's this practice, it's Native Americans, we also do it in Africa, where we call them the companion sisters, the three sisters, where you plant crops together like corn, beans, and squash. The corn, you have the corn, it provides a structure for the beans to grow, and the squash crop, it acts like for pets, so the pets don't eat up the crop. So they work in harmony. I mean, everything we want is produced by nature. So there's this coexistence. The corn is like, I mean, you're helping me and I'm helping you. So it's there. So you don't need something extra to do it. And in AFSA, I mean, she's already introduced that I work with an alliance called the Alliance of Food Sovereignty in Africa. We're in 52 out of 54 countries in Africa, and we work on food issues. We've had several cases to make a coherent case for agroecology as the sustainable long-term solution, because some of these solutions that the industrial companies are bringing, they are not sustainable, they are not long-term, they are produced out of their selfish interest. They are smiling to the bank. They just want to make profit. So these are all the cases. If you go to the AFSA website, you see there are thousands, many cases from the ground. The beauty about this is the experience of the people in their own voice, writing down and saying, this is what we did using agroecology methods. A typical example is a community in Ethiopia called Tigray. This was what the situation was, degraded lands. But when they used agroecological principles, the land was rehabilitated, everything grew back, there were food security and food sovereignty. We try not to use the word food security alone, because when you say people should have food security, you mean they can just have food without sovereignty. I mean, it doesn't respect the right. Okay, you're hungry, you can just eat bread from morning till night. But food sovereignty goes further than that. It says, eat what you want that is produced in a healthy and respectable manner. So inside food sovereignty, there is food security. Yeah, I'm trying to now, like I said, the key findings from our people who we engage with the communities on agroecology was that there was more yields, it was nutritious, they even made more money, and it was sustainable, not just for the people, but for the planet. So there should be a transition to agroecology, not away from it. Now, the transformation that we want is not what the biotech company wants. They want to commodify nature. They want to make money from nature. And there's this prominent leader from Africa, Kwame Nkrumah, says, the worst form of imperialism is exploitation without responsibility. These people are avoiding responsibility. They don't want to be held accountable. That is why they will come to COP and say they don't want anything on precaution. They don't want anything on assessment. They want to just go on as business as usual, just to go about doing their business and smiling to the back without accountability, without any responsibility. In Nigeria, there's dumping of GMOs. Like some years ago, they brought in Monsanto's BT cotton. That cotton failed in Burkina Faso and in some countries. Despite the cry by civil society and farmers that we don't want it, our government went ahead to bring that BT cotton into our environment, into our planet, into our soil. The same thing is happening in Kenya right now. In Tanzania, there's a law that criminalizes farmers, and we are fighting against it. You cannot save your seed, you cannot reuse it, you cannot exchange it. These are old traditional practices where farmers can save their seeds and exchange them. But with these companies, you have to go back to buy these seeds year in, year out, and I would think it's evil, it's criminal. It shouldn't happen that you should deny farmers of this practice of saving seeds and using them again. So I'm trying to go, of course, there are real solutions and there are false solutions. I have to run. This presentation will be here for you. Gloria will share them because we don't think, and they come up with very fanciful or climate smart agriculture. Who won't want agriculture to be smart? But there's nothing smart about the agriculture that they are promoting. It is agriculture stupid. There's nothing about our culture in there. It's monocultures, it's chemical inputs, it's a whole lot of things. There should be a shift from industrial agriculture to agriculture, which has been proven that it actually feeds us and nourishes the planet. So we say there should be a move to agroecology away from industrial agriculture. And these things are not, you cannot do them in isolation. when you affect the agriculture, you affect the planet. And I'm going to give some example. If you look at that picture, this was a case before the oil spills. They come into our country. I mean, look at how green it was, and they come in, they destroy a whole community, a whole environment. And just 5 years down the line, the whole mangrove were destroyed. So now, I don't know, some of you must have heard about Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was killed, I mean, that's the word, murdered, because he stood up to speak about this bully called Shell that came into a community in Niger Delta, where I come from, and ravaged that community, destroyed it. And there's a community called Goi. If you go to that community, you can literally not live there. The water, the rivers, the air, the ground, the farms, they are all polluted. They have killed, if I had to use the word, killed that environment with their spill. They just do business there and damaged the environment. He was killed with some others because he spoke out. Our government worked in connivance with this corporation to kill their own people. That was me in COP, where we were talking about that. We wanted COP, if at the basic minimum, they should consider equity, human rights, and justice. So we had a demonstration, peaceful demonstration, that the people who are being killed. And in recent times, many eco-defenders and environmental defenders are being killed for speaking out against extractivism, mining, poisoning, how the corporations have carried out their businesses. Many of them have been killed. Last year most people were killed in South Africa, different parts of the country. In Latin America, people have been killed speaking up on behalf of their communities. So for us, we pray there should be, like, you cannot say because this is happening in Nigeria, you will not be involved, because what happens in one country has implications for others. That is why in South Africa, they have what they call Ubuntu. I am because you are. I cannot live in isolation without you. In Eastern Africa, Swahili, it is called Arambi. Where I come from, it's called Ituwem. We need to come together to save our planet. We need cooperation, we need sharing, we need mutual benefits. But of course, this cannot happen if there's no justice and reconciliation, because these people, look at that, people have been killed, our lands have been poisoned, so much horror. I mean, horror is going on. The people, some of them, people are not even documented. It cannot go on like that, and we need people to speak about it. The community I spoke about, if you die at 45, that is the life expectancy because of what is going on. People die at 45 years. That is your life expectancy. It is horrible. It shouldn't happen. As I begin to round up, yeah, there's a Shell. They've been pronounced guilty. I've been happy, and they've been asked to pay 15 million euros for what they've done for destroying farmlands in communities and destroying an environment. Unfortunately, the claimants who started that case, all of them have died. So you can imagine, this is 15 years. After 15 years, this case was finally decided, and Shell did not want the case to be tried in Netherlands. They wanted it in Nigeria where they can get away. But the court says, no, you've committed this offense and you're going to face the music, and we're happy. That is my executive director, Chima Williams, who was at the forefront of this case. He recently won the Goldman Prize for his efforts and for what he has been able to champion this cause with these communities for 15 years. And as a roundup, we said, there's intergenerational responsibility, because it doesn't end with me, it doesn't end with you, it goes on. We are called to internal vigilance, and we cannot stop. The truth that everyone wants to but cannot swallow, we all know that the future of our food in Africa belongs to the African farmers, the small-scale farmers, and everywhere is the people who produce food that should decide what they want, not corporations, not billionaires. We don't have any other planet aside from this planet, so let's defend Mother Earth, and let's be a keeper and call out those who are destroying nature. Thank you so much. These are the people who helped with this presentation. I took information from AFSA, from ETC Group, OMEV, Friends of the Earth International, and I'm happy to share with anybody who wants. I have their consent and permission. You can use it as you want, as long as you call out these people killing our environment. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mariann. It's really interesting what you just presented, and it's a lot of information as well. It's also really sad to see like the guardians of land and protectors of the soil are actually pushed back when it comes to the needs. And just to reflect a little bit about, in the beginning, you talked about you participated in the COP15. I would like your reflection. How was it in terms of civil society representation, especially civil societies from within Africa? How was it the representation, and also indigenous community? Because you talked a little bit about companies having control, but what is that like in terms of the viewer to imagine it in this kind of forums?
Yeah, thanks, Gloria. To even get to COP was even a problem because you need a visa to get to Montreal. And it took the intervention of some civil society people in Montreal and some people to get some of us to even get our visas to go to COP. So you can imagine a lot of people couldn't even attend because to get visa to Canada is like passing through cameras. It's a lot of process, a lot of documents. So that was it. So there were few people coming from Africa there, not talk of developing countries, I mean, not talk of farmers themselves. So there were few people, not so many people. And then, of course, it's not cheap to travel all the way. You have hotels, bills, and to actually stay. And so it wasn't very easy for people there. And whilst we were there, you could visibly see, I mean, these people, they are paid, most of the delegates, as a civil society person, we can only lobby, we can only speak to them, have side events, but we don't have voting rights. It's the delegates, I mean, it's countries that have the power to vote and speak. We cannot speak at the plenary or at contact, except except the chair of the group. Okay, let us hear your views. It's not binding. And for the views to be binding, the delegates from a country, delegates are countries, would have to support what the civil society has said. So we tried our best. What we do is to look at the issues, and we actually do a lot. I mean, some meetings go as late as 3 a.m. in the morning, trying to look at issues and try to maybe to lobby maybe some countries. We had some good countries like Bolivia to see please take in the views of people there. So it wasn't very easy speaking to them. And you have people like, I mean, billionaires, the Gates there, who would bring in a lot of, I mean, he would pay the pipe to text a tune, put them in good hotels. I mean, they sleep in good hotels, give them fly business class, come in there, and they're actually speaking the minds of these corporates. Because like I said, why won't you want something as good as a precautionary principle? Where there is doubt, do not do any wrong. Why won't you want agroecology? I mean, I've explained in little terms what agroecology is, what is food sovereignty. People who produce the food should be respected, and you don't want it in the text. So you're saying we don't want I don't want it to be alive, because if you take away the rights of these people to produce their own food, and you want patents on their food, you want them to come to you every year to buy seeds, you are invariably saying, oh, I want you to die, because it's like colonizing them all over again. So our voices, there was a debate there was a protest in Montreal where indigenous people were saying, we've had enough, we have to be respected, we have to be at the driving seat. Don't just make decisions for us and say, maybe, they said, indigenous people said, that's not true. Because even with farmers, we have the real farmers and political farmers. When they want to do those things, they call in their political farmers and they say, oh, the farmers said, those are not the farmers. Those are their political farmers. So in terms of representation, I would say we didn't have like a good mass of people there. It was just few of us who were trying to animate the voices of people who we represent in the grassroots.
Yeah, thank you very much. Going back to what you just discussed about the 30-30, could you just again explain what is the implication and how would it be implemented in terms of preserving the 30% so that to avoid extinction of our species, but how is that going to be applicable? Was that discussed in the framework, and how that would affect for countries?
Like I said, I mean, at the end of this, please, those online, the organizers are going to share the link. Try and watch this. It's less than 3 minutes. A video by Survival International. There's a voiceover by Comrade Mariann Bassey. It actually tells you the implication of this 30 times 30. It means that by 2030, that the plan to conserve 30% of water and 30% of land. I mean, on itself, I mean, that looks very good on paper. I mean, why would you want to conserve 30%? Why are you people always crying about things? But then, where is this 30% going to come from? Which land? Are they really protected areas? If you come, for instance, and take maybe a forest, this is where I go to farm and take my bed and say, we want to protect this area. That means people who work in there shouldn't go there. You won't have to do anything there because it's protected. So what happens to the people who use that land? So where are they going to get these protected lands? Of course, I can assure you it's going to come from Africa and other developing countries. And it's going to be in places where indigenous people use. So like I said, I don't want to preempt watch that video. It will give you details and analysis of what that 30 and 30% implies. For us, it's not just about the money. I mean, money is not about everything. It's about also restoration and respect. You don't come in to say, why won't you have conversations with the people? There are better ways to conserve land, because we feel this 30 times 30 will have far-reaching implications. Not just, it might be good on paper, but how do you really implement that, coming to a community, to a village, and taking over protected areas? So for me, I feel I don't really see in reality how they will do it without really hurting people or sacking community or villages.
More pushing out people away from their land, and that is the part that is missing towards
of course, they won't say that.
Yes. There is so many more questions to ask, but before we continue, is there any question from the audience that we are here today, or reflection? Yes, somebody will help us with sending the mics. Because we are limited with time, please ask a short question so that you could give opportunities to other people to ask as well. Please, welcome.
Thank you very much. Two things that I thought about. First, to connect to what you just described on the problematic things of the 30% protected land and water. Did the COP15 elaborate on the responsibility country by country, and did they elaborate on how the manner of how it will be? Did they mention anything about possibilities for co-management with local communities and so forth? And my other question was, you mentioned that the victory of getting agroecology, the wording, into the text. What about food sovereignty? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, they said by 2030, developing countries are going to give like $30 billion to developing countries, and it's a process. It's still in discussion. It's a target. 30 is a target. In this COP15, COP16, which will happen in 2024, because COP happens they're going to work out the modalities, and they've said they've spoken with indigenous people, and I wonder which indigenous people they spoke to, because the people I represent never heard of that. All of us heard it for the first time there. So it's like, it's a target. They're going to work. It's not fully developed, but this is what else we have. Like I said, there are 23 targets, and this is one of the targets. This is like a wish list. This is what we plan to do, and that what they said, developing countries will have to pay by 2030, $30 billion to developing countries. And I think it's being worked out, it's being figured out, but I just know it based from historical things that have happened, that this is also going to be one of those green, like I said, I don't want to preempt. I want you to watch that video done by International, but it's greenwashing. Where will you go? Which indigenous people? I mean, there are very many. I mean, I don't know which people they had discussions with, because they pick a few people. It's like they always do this thing, divide and rule. You go, you feel the people that you feel are leaders and speak to them, and who are not even in touch with the people. Like while I was in COP, there was a World Food Day was organized by a group and sponsored by Bezos funds. You had Bezos, I mean, it's one person destroying our world. I mean, with Amazons and things, with what he's doing with things. And I was asked to come and speak. I didn't want to go, but I felt, let me just go there and call them out. And before I started my presentation, I said, where are the farmers? You're talking about World Food Day, you're celebrating food. The people who produce food, nobody is here. I don't see them here. I actually asked where. I was thinking they're going to throw me out of the, because I got up and said, please, farmers, we want to welcome you. Farmers, hunter-gatherers, fisher folk, women, peasants, please, welcome. I mean, there was nobody. And I was like, I mean, I'm shocked that you are a whole food, people that actually, I mean, these are if you're calling, they are stakeholders, they're people who have no stake. I mean, all of us have stake in food. These are the people who produce the food. They can no longer eat from their food. They are not there. Why would you do that? They're not even in the COP. We're not even speaking. So for me, I feel they're not being sincere. It's a lot of blind polemics, empty rhetorics. It's not happening. Yeah. On your second question, I mean, they won't even accept agroecology if you want to bring in food sovereignty, because they don't want anything rights. These people, they try to kill her. They don't want people to accept themselves. Agroecology is just a component of food sovereignty. Food is bigger. They would not. Brazil acted like a brat. They would never want agroecology on it unless they have the word sustainable intensification. And they insist that it must come before agroecology. Sustainable intensification means you can have like inputs, you can have monocultures. For us, we don't promote, nature likes diversity. But look at this room, we are all different. Diversity, you can grow, like I talked about the companion crops, grow different things. They just want one thing. maybe yellow corn. Like if you go to Mexico, Mexico is a city of corn. They have blue corn, they have yellow, diversity. And Monsanto wants to genetically modify. Why would you do that? This is a city of corn. They just want one thing because they want the rights, they want the patents, they want to be able to smart to the banks. They come to Nigeria, they want cassava. They go to any country, they take the staples of the people of the country because they are businessmen, because whether rich or poor, you are going to buy that food. So they want to modify genetically, as my mentor says, Vänner, they want to contaminate because they cannot produce anything. You cannot take what nature is already given to us and say you want to produce. What are you producing? You are tinkering with nature and calling it you are doing something, and then you want to make business of it. These are criminals. Yeah. If you ask me, they should be in jail. But since you did not ask me, I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, I can sense the passionate and about it as well, and how it's very, as you said, very complex in the nature, because the land and the resources are also owned by people and communities. And in these kind of negotiation, it's really important to have those kind of perspective, both perspective from communities. For our viewers online, you're also very much welcome to ask questions. Feel free to comment and ask questions, and we will respond to them. Going back to just, you talked a little bit about the role of communities and how commodification of nature and how it's happening, that land and extractivism is pushing communities away from their land. And you talked about the company, like the Shell company, that has been a ongoing case for a long time. And finally, it's a successful case. But there's a lot of land grabbing cases of the same nature that actually don't work. What is your reflection from a civil society organization? What can be done differently in holding companies accountable, but also holding people who violate human rights accountable?
Thanks, Gloria, for that. I think, from the Shell case, it's one thing came out very clearly, that this company can be held accountable and be made to face what they've done. And it's also good that, I'm happy that there are different people here, civil society groups, people who live in areas or in countries where those companies are operating from should also hold them accountable. Shell did not want, they have their headquarters in Netherlands. They didn't want the case to be tried in Netherlands because they knew they would follow due process. They wanted it in Nigeria, where they know they can cut corners, bribe the government. If it was somewhere else, Sarawak would still be alive. They worked with our government and killed these people. So it's countries. If you have a country where you have this cooperation, you should work there to hold them accountable. I think the things these companies do in Africa, they will never do them where they come from. There's a country, some years ago, I worked with an organization called Grain. We chased out a company called Dominion Farms from a city in the northern Nigeria. They came to a place in Taraba State in Nigeria. They bought up a land, and in that land, they bought up the only access to water. Because if you buy up the land, the people cannot access water. They own the place, and they bought up that land, and they block the people from accessing. And that is the only, you will think a wicked and evil person would do that. This is where people access water, and then cut them off. So we heard they did the same thing in Kenya, and we worked with Grain. We spoke to the shareholders in the US, and they called them out. They are afraid to be called out from there, but they can do anything in Africa and get away with it because our government, we should be like our protector. Sometimes, and most oftentimes are not, because of some dollars, they look the other way and allow them commit all kinds of impunity in our land. So it's good as civil society, we work with, but if there's a company in Sweden committing atrocities anywhere in Africa or anywhere in the world, the civil society here should be able to work with the people there to ensure that that company is brought to book. So I think we are called to eternal vigilance. We can't say it's one of them, because as you're doing one, there are different dimensions. There are many people coming into the data companies, food, industrial, a lot of people. So we need, like I said, we need this international solidarity so we can hold them accountable. They don't want to be held accountable. They don't want to look so bad. So if we come together, they know that if they come to commit a crime in Nigeria, they'll be called out in Sweden, they'll be called out in Netherlands. I think they will behave better. They won't go away, because Shell has been asked to pay so much. They are still drilling. They've asked them to stop. But because of the money they are making, they will just, these are businessmen. They're not just, you see that they are thinking about our people. They're not thinking about our people. They're thinking about how they'll make more money. I don't know how they sleep at night. And smile to the bank.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's like, it's really interesting what you just talked about, accountability and the way our world is moving in terms of climate change, in terms of the biodiversity loss. We have to hold each other accountable in different levels. And also this solidarity of having a solidarity because it's our nature, as you said there's no planet B. So that's really interesting to put in perspective. Is there any more questions from, yes, there were some hands up. Yes.
Yes. I was thinking about the 30 by 30 goal as well. And just as the indigenous groups have different interests depending on who it is, I feel like the environmental movement does as well. So it was interesting. Sorry, this was too long. Was there any division within the environmental movement and the civil society on the 30 by 30 goal? And who did you see on the different sides of that?
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
For us, I mean, we spoke with one voice. I wasn't, because it was done late into the night. I'd already left when this discussion was going on. It went, because it was almost the last day of the COP, early hours of the 19th, where this decision was. I had the president of the chair of that, I've forgotten his name, it's from China, because they were the ones hosting last year's COP. They didn't host it in China because of what was going on with COVID. They asked Montreal, Canada, to help them, give them a space, but they were still hosting. They didn't allow delegates from TRSP because they were not happy with some of the packages of this 30-30, and they were objecting. They didn't allow them to speak. Like I said, as civil society, we don't have the rights to speak on the floor because it's only countries. Countries are delegates. But I can tell you, as civil society, of course, we have civil society who are industrial civil society, who are biotech, but the real civil society people, we are skeptical about this. Like I said, at the end of this chat and conversations, we're going to show this video and you will understand more. But from civil society, we are there's something, we are skeptical about this 30 times 30. Like I said, where are you going to take it from? Which waters, which land? Because it's land, it's the water, it's the forest, is where is it going to come from? So for us, we are not, we don't want to sound like alarmist and people are always saying things, but we know that something is off somewhere.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yes, is there any more questions from the audience that you would like to ask? Okay, I have another question. You talked about the role, when it comes to the role of communities and how much they are the protectors of the land, they are the protectors of the soil, and being part of the Alliance for Food Sovereignty. What kind of initiative already is done within the communities that preserve biodiversity that maybe wasn't taken in the framework, because you talked about the different aspect that was omitted, and you said that agroecology is in there, but food sovereignty is missing. So what is the part that you think that would be relevant to be considered in the biodiversity framework?
Like I said before, the whole agroecology principles we wanted it there. But having sustainable intensification makes it just like maybe washing your clothes and then dropping them on the mud again. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
We are looking at, I know that Brazil would literally kill himself, or they would run amok if we try to bring in food sovereignty. We're trying to bring in, let us not bring in the mother, let's bring in the child, which is agroecology, which talks about respect for the people who produce the food, respect in the way this food is produced, respect in the way people want to eat this food, and giving them a voice. They don't want that. If you want to do anything with our food, let us have a say. So with the agroecology, they don't even want that. So I don't even think, because they've tried, you will never see food sovereignty in any of these multilateral spaces. They don't want to hear that. All you will see is food security. like I said before, food security is very different from food sovereignty. Food security has been hijacked. It's more or less a biotech language because they want you to be food secured. For instance, you can eat, just fill your tummy.
Yeah.
We don't care whether it's nutritious or not. We don't care about it's more about quantity, not quality of the food. You can eat just bread from morning, night, evening. That is it. Just eat bread. You're hungry, eat something. I say, I don't care. Just you say you're hungry, eat something. But we said, no, it must be more food. It's a relationship in food. It's agriculture. There's culture. For us in Africa, I mean, I'm sure you know, almost everything has to do with food. Marriages, birth, even burials. You cook for people. People eat. They talk about in the tables, even in families. That is a way of interaction. I mean, here, I mean, there's tea. There's something. There's, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some form of food involved in most gatherings. So you cannot when you come and capture that critical aspect of people's life and culture, you are taking over their lives. So they don't want to hear people say something. They don't want that people having a form of identity because they want to control. I mean, they're not colonizing countries like in time past. There's a form of colonization going on because if you don't want people to accept themselves in how they want to eat their food, there's something wrong somewhere. So that is why when we said they don't want the agroecology because it's like they feel we are testing the waters. Soon, they're going to have agroecology. They're going to, so they want that sustainable intensification, and it comes first. So for me, it makes no sense of the agroecology. We are just happy that yes, it is there. We can use it to hold our governments accountable. There's agroecology, respect the farmers. Food should be grown in a way that it's in harmony with nature, not against it. It cools the planet. It respects the farmers. It nourishes. It also makes them at least earn some money from it. It's something good. So that is just it.
Yes. Thank you very much. And normally when we discuss about alternatives when it comes to food rights and nature, there's always this other side, people wondering, what is the alternative? Like, can we really function in this current globe without intensive agriculture? Can we really produce enough food? So I want to know your reflection when it comes to that. Like, is it possible to have a food system that doesn't depend on intensive agriculture?
It's very poor. I mean, straightforward answer will be yes, capital, yes. It's very possible. I mean, why would you, I mean, in recent times in Nigeria, I personally, from myself, I've had a number of surgeries. I mean, that's to do with my tummy. I feel it's what has been done to our food. There's high dosing of our food with chemicals. That is why even it's a target. I mean, one of the targets there that they want to reduce as a use of pesticides in food. How were we growing our food before? I mean, there could be other things. I mean, in harmony, there are other things that in nature you can do. There's some innovations. Like I said, we're not saying no innovation. There could be innovative ways of doing things, working with the farmers, but not this thing. I mean, how do you produce when you want just to have just yellow corn? You don't want black corn, just one thing. Somebody would have a rice to it. How do you want to produce our food with? So because with like with Monsanto's maize, it comes with a combo of glyphosate. And I don't know if some of us have followed the case of Mr. Dwayne Jackson, who got cancer from using Monsanto's glyphosate, and the case went all over to the Supreme Court, and they said Monsanto was liable. They consider it as economic benefit by our product. It's quick action. Like even now in Africa, people used to cut their grass. In front, people use chemicals. The whole place is being chemicalized. So if there's a word like that, you dose food with a lot of chemicals. It's not healthy. Look at the high cost people going to the hospitals. People are sick because of what has been done to the food. I mean, it's like, imagine if food was to speak. Imagine me, somebody pouring chemicals on me. I would scream. Enough, it's enough already. I feel if our government, there are other ways you could encourage the farmers to grow in a sustainable way, not with putting chemicals. I don't see it. Why would you want more food with chemicals? I mean, do you want to send people to the hospital? Are you trying to reduce the population? They should come out and tell us something, not using food as a weapon. So I feel we've come out to see, like I said, we've produced a number of cases in AFSA, Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, showing I showed those pictures that we have, that we can actually feed our people, that we have, like these are cases in different communities using agroecological methods. People have produced. I also showed the case of the community in Ethiopia where land that was degraded through agroecology was restored and people got food. I mean, it's people coming in and farming and doing so many things. We don't really need this, and that is the lie they've sold to us. You need industrial farming, and they flip this thing when it fits them. I was at the egg some years back where they were trying to introduce agro fuels, where they will use some of our food as fuel for cars in Europe, and they were like, you people have big lands, marginal lands that you're not using, so we can grow those products there. And how do you define marginal lands? There's nothing like marginal lands, because in Africa, people have their cattle, they graze. Sometimes in farming, they allow the lands to lie fallow so they can regenerate themselves. So they come back. Yes. Yeah. So you can say, okay, for this year, people don't farm there, go to another place, let the land be restored. These are traditional and local ways of nature restoring back. I mean, like you have surgery, they will say for 2 or 3 years, don't lift anything, allow your body to come back. So it's the same thing with nature. That is why we had all kinds of nature. It's pushing back. Yeah. In Nigeria, we've never had that flood last year. It was very deep because of what has been done, the activities of human. Like the UN Secretary said, the humanity is killing nature, and it's suicide by proxy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, yes, we have a question from the audience.
Thank you very much. I'm Hanna from We Effect, which is an organization that supports small-scale farmers, including in Africa, organizing into cooperatives. And by the way, bought blue popcorn yesterday. I just want that added. I'm just thinking, if we think ahead, for instance, for the CBD COP24, and we want to internationally, collectively be the alternative voice, because I find, for instance, in the UNFCCC COP27, it was very much focused on, as well, I mean, big industry, but agriculture being a reason for climate change and not being part of the solution. And I think here as well, you have to, like, when you have facing the big biotech industry, for instance, how do we, with agroecology as an example, turn that around into agriculture and food sovereignty being part of the solution for biodiversity, pollination, all these kind of things, right? Then maybe my question is then how do we collectively come together in the best way forward and be that strong lobbying advocacy voice? Like, what strategies can we, if we've not only focus on the what, but just like, how do we build that strength?
Yes, it's a very good question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're already doing it. That is one of it, having the conversations. I mean, we thank Friends at Sweden for bringing us here, and I mean, the collaborative who organized this. And I heard in COP27, there's a plan to have an alternative COP where we can, before the COPs actually take place, we have our own COP of people. I mean, this consortium of people who work with the fishers, the food, the land. I mean, we are genuinely working with the people on ground to have like some points and say, this is what we will go to COP, look for money, and actually be there in our numbers and ensure these things are carried on by our people. And also, maybe before, I mean, for people who governments actually listen to them, you can have interactions with the delegates who actually go to COP and tell them this is what is happening. Maybe some of them genuinely, maybe they don't know. Maybe if you have delegates who come to, who are coming from Sweden to COP, those who are coming from Netherlands, have maybe like before the COP, maybe have to prepare some like pamphlets, like bullet points because most of people, they are very busy. They don't want to live like this. Most of these documents, they have volumes and volumes of text. You don't want to spend most of your time. Maybe we have like an executive summary, have some meetings. Maybe people are tired of it. Maybe it's hit out a part in a fun way. Invite them and let them tell them what the problems and the solutions, because we have the solutions. And when people say it's an agriculture is not an alternative, it is. That is the real deal, because it has been there. Maybe it's just called agroecology now. People have been practicing it. Agriculture in how many ways? Maybe they didn't have a word for it, or maybe they didn't cover it. It's something that has existed from. I met it. I had grandparents who were farmers who did things. I remember one time I was with my grandma and pepper entered into my eye and he said, "Put salt in your mouth." And honestly, immediately I did that. I mean, I was okay. This is traditional knowledge. The fact that she did not go to school, or she's not, I mean, she doesn't have an office, they know they've practiced these things for, it's like intergenerational, but you practice given from one person and passed to the other. They know about this. They can tell you, okay, if you plant this crop with this thing, it will do well. Like I said, the corn, the beans, and the squash crops, they're combined together to help themselves. One takes care of the weed, one acts as like beans, nitrogen on the soil, one acts like a structure. So it's like a coexistence. These things are already there. It's not as if they're alternative. They are working. There's evidence to show me. There's a whole lot of text, like I said. If you go to people, we've documented it, because maybe we didn't have like document or codification of these things. So we're trying to document, go to communities and get their stories out and write them. Let them see. I think they just say that because the billionaires, the biotech companies, they want to make money, they would drown this thing out. So that's the issue. I think we should have more conversations. We should try to have like maybe and synergy. I think most people, we're working in silos. We're doing different things. We should really, these companies, they are few, but they come together. Look at Monsanto has been bought over by Bayer, but they're still working together. There is a coming together of these corporations. They work like a syndicate. They work like one voice. I think as people who are interested genuinely in the society, in modern, we should also come together and think. It's conversations we should have before that time. How do we? It's not something I have all the answers. Different people will have to come together and see how best do we intervene to save Mother Earth.
I think it's really interesting that you talked about the synergy of having this common voice, and also that when it comes to, we discuss in silos, biodiversity, climate change, we all discuss in different, but it's actually part of the environment. And in order to acquire environmental justice, all this has to be together. And my question in relations to that, because you talked, you were explaining about the part of agroecology and that it's part of the framework, and you talked about conservation and protection, that 30 by 30. And now going ahead, how do you reflect on the terms of the financing? Because as you said, you talked about the companies being part of the discussion, and most of the monetary value goes to them. They have the money. How did you see this in the COP15, and how do we move forward in terms of actually financing and implementing all these strategies?
Financing in what terms?
In terms of actually being able to conserve the 30% and protect the 30%. And there's been discussion on terms of who should give the money, which part of the world should be responsible. So more in that sense, the responsibility part, but also the solidarity part. So I wanted to know your reflection on that aspect.
I think, I find it really difficult when they put a price in nature. You can't, price tag. I'm not very happy when nature is commodified, when you put a price tag, this financialization of nature, because you can't buy nature, you can't. This is things that have been freely given, and most times when they do that, it's always from a very selfish point of view.
Yes.
They're saying they're going to give 30 billion to developing countries. I don't know what modalities, what framework, how they're going to do that, and I'm sure there'll be some countries would literally kill themselves to get the money, because it's all about, they would not want to think about what is the far-reaching implications for this, because when nobody gives you that kind of money and they don't expect something in return. When $30 billion is a whole lot, it's a whole lot of money. It's not a whole lot of money. If you're thinking of developing countries, there are very many. If you're going to, I don't know what criteria they use in going to divide what portion, who gets what to what country. I mean, are they going to give you the money so you don't touch a particular, maybe like it's okay, Nigeria, we're going to give you maybe $100 billion. Don't touch that land or something. And the government says yes, but fine. We know that land is held in trust by the government of our people, but the land there does not, it belongs to people. People come from that place. They use it as their medicine. They use it as their source of livelihood. They use it as their sexual wash or things. So many things is done, and instead, don't go there. I mean, it's just like the case in the state where Benin, there's a company called Michelin. They've taken over a Como. There's a forest there where some people, where a forest was taken over by some company, and a woman was actually shot. I have my colleague, my colleague Rita, who works with those women, and with the help of friends of the Netherlands, we were able to try to take care of her before she came back. She was shot because she actually wanted to go to a source of livelihood to get food. So I'm just worried this financialization of by these people, when they start really implementing it. I'm also curious, how would it work out? What would be the implications for the community on ground? Because the government is high up there. What the land you want to protect? what will become of those people? Because I can assure you, those money will not trickle down to those people in the communities. They're going to some won't even get it. So most of them, maybe they're going to be refugees, or they're going to be like guests in other communities, because when they can't go back they have to go to stay somewhere, and they will never be accepted. And in Africa, you should never be taken away from your land, because our land defines us. I mean, our land, everything is done on the land. Land is very, very key and very important. So we are
connected
really,
with identity as well.
True.
Thank you. We have a comment, actually, not a question, but from one of the viewers that says, indeed, smallholders, farmers feed us all. We need to keep lending the voice of our work. Thank you for the perspective. Yes, definitely. We should continue to protect small-scale producers who are protecting the land and indigenous communities. I don't want to exhaust you with so many questions, but it's really interesting, your perspective, and also being at the COP15 and seeing the civil society roles and how important it is, according to what you was reflecting, voices and actually to have representations when it comes to communities. And the part of commodification of nature, I think that is putting monetary value to things that are you can't really put monetary value on. In terms like destruction of environment, you can't really get it back. So that is really something that we have to reflect on going forward. Like, how can we have better approaches on seeing our nature and our environment beyond just commodities, beyond just like package. And I think you talked about really interesting in terms of the food waste and food aspect, how much we're producing and what happens to communities. I would like your reflection when it comes to the production of food production. You talked a little bit about the aspect of seed and being criminalized and communities taking away their indigenous seeds, I assume. But I want your reflection on how, going forward, especially with protection of biodiversity and the framework, how can we better organization within Sweden and other EU countries actually support that protection of seeds right and community seeds right?
Thank you so much, Gloria. I mean, a clear example is what is happening in Tanzania. In Kenya right now, they just passed a bill or a law that allows GMOs into the country. And there was even on video, on camera, I mean, it's not, we had the minister or a commissioner or whatever, saying that people are complaining, why would you even allow GMOs into our countries where we are not faced with a situation where we cannot produce food, or we cannot feed ourselves. We've had cases of where GMOs have actually, injured people. They said something will kill a man. Eventually, this is a government person says it, something will kill somebody. I'm just paraphrasing, but he said that if you don't die, if GMOs do not kill you, something else will kill you. How do you even speak that way for a government person? And in Tanzania, there's a law that says, as a farmer, you cannot save your seeds. If you cannot reuse them, you cannot exchange them. These are old practices that have existed for many, many years. Farmers save their seeds to use them in late planting season. For instance, if Gloria and I are farmers, I can say, oh, Gloria, please, do you have beans? She'll give it to me and I can give her corn. It's just a way of life. It's the Ubuntu life, the Etiuwem, the Arimbe, this existence that you can, we are sisters. We live in this world together. There's this coexistence. They don't want that because they want to make money. Initially they still have a terminator seeds. You plant them once, and then you always go back to the company to get the seed. That is what they want. So as civil society, as people, what can we do to help these people? We are here, we should, our voices, like there's a blanket of silence. Silence will be treason. When we say things that are wrong and we keep quiet, it's sometimes, you keep quiet, it means silence can mean different things. Sometimes you say silence does not mean acceptance, but in most cases it does. You can, for instance, I don't know how many of us will see a child, maybe it's crying, we'll be moved. What is happening to you? Where is your mom? So, but most times there's a blanket of silence with things that really matter to people. How do we sit down and allow our farmers to be bled to death? That is bleeding, where they can no longer sustain themselves. With time, they can't even buy those seeds because they'll be very expensive. So we need to speak up. We need to write to these people. One thing I know about our African government, they like to do good. They don't want to be called out on social media. They don't want people outside to know that what they're doing is bad. And most times, if people from outside lend their voices to say, oh, this is wrong, allow farmers to save their seeds, allow them to exchange, do what they've been doing. It's not, how does that even affect you as a government or as an industry that these farmers, of course, it affects the industry because they won't make more money.
Yeah.
So we need to continue having these conversations. Like some people, you'll be shocked that most people don't know what is going on, that these things are actually happening. So we need to continue to have these conversations. We need to speak about them, not just in gatherings, at home, at schools, at workplaces. At maybe if you have connections to the people in the parliament. Like when I spoke at COP, there was a parliamentarian from Brussels who asked me, he said, please, Mariann, I want to share what you just shared in your presentation to the parliamentarian. I said, please be free. If you want anything, if they want help, please, I can give you more materials. I can give you access. Please just be, as long as it has to do with the community, please copy. There's no copyrights and whatever. Please copy them. Screen them. You will not be. You will not be. I don't mind as far as our environment is safe. As far as the farmers who produce our people are respected, I'm all for it. So we need to keep on having this conversation. We need to speak at, and in whatever ways. I might not have touched about them. We know that we have different dimensions, but we just have one goal. We should all know that there is no planet B. There is no planet billionaires. We are all working for the survival of our planet. In the next 100 years, all of us are out of this place. I don't think anybody here would be around in the next 100 years, but our children will be. So we need to leave a legacy for them where they'll be able to eat food that nourishes them, breathe good air, the environment is not destroyed. And you will not say because it's happening in Nigeria, they'll subtly, it's like they're testing the grounds. It's in one country, but suddenly it will come like a geoengineering. If it happens anywhere, it's going to come here. So we have to really look out for each other.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And definitely, as you said, on the aspect of seed and knowing that 63% of the seed production is controlled by just 3 companies. So there's a lot of power in our food system that also affects the environmental destruction because land is used and communities are affected. And I think you reflected that very much in your discussion. We have one more question. Yes, please. And then we would slowly close the session. Yes.
I'll try to be quick. By the way, my name is Åsa and I work for Viskogen in Swedish, V Agroforestry in English, a small agroforestry organization with activities in East Africa. My question builds on what my friend Hannah here was asking earlier on how we mobilize for the next COP. And since you've been just recently to COP15, which organizations would you say are really strong? So if we in this room want to do advocacy and want to link up, you were there with Friends of the Earth. You mentioned AFSA. Like what big international organizations should we keep in mind if we want to link up to someone who's bigger than we are and have a greater voice? Thanks.
There are many organizations that are good. There's the ETC group. They are very good. And some groups are good in certain things. When it comes to issues of gene drives, biotechnology, ETC group is good. The African Center for Biodiversity works there. The TWN, the Third World Network, they are very, very, very good. There's Ecoropa is very good. And there's of course Friends of the Earth, our organization. We've always been at COP, and there are some other climate groups. I don't know them, but I can find out the list and then send out the groups that they are very good groups. And what happens that before COP, we normally have like meetings. So if any group is interested, they can just reach out to me, or you can reach out to her. We can connect. You can be part of these discussions because pre-COP we have like Zoom meetings, preparations. People who are coming in, we take them through the process of what to expect, what happens at COP. And then at COP, we have meetings every morning. Like people give briefings because you can't be at all the plenaries. People have like a summary. I was here. People will go to the maybe indigenous meetings. People will attend the different things. They give like an update. I'm sure the same thing happens at the climate COPs, where they meet every morning to brief and debrief of what has happened and who is doing what. But these are the major groups I'm involved with: TWN, ETC Group, AC Bio, Ukoropa.
We can also like,
And there are youth groups too, some
Yeah.
very good ones. So we can.
yeah,
offer that.
we can also put in the comment section for this presentation, this seminar, all the organization, and also your contact will be visible
Yeah.
to get more details. But I think also that is a question from like, we really want to, since we're a different organization, but I also know that there's also people who are really interested in engaging more in protecting our biodiversity. We want to find ways of actually being more effective on our agendas, but also how best to represent different voices without overtaking the power, you know? So I think it's really interesting how the different parts that you talked about on agroecology, on how solidarity is really important, on the aspect of not looking at the commodification of nature just by itself, because I think that would also change our perspective on looking at the solution, which was really interesting. And going forward, I hope that many more people are inspired to actually follow up on the biodiversity discussion, but also see what are we engaging in Sweden as well, and where are we putting our voices when it comes to protection of biodiversity. Before we close the seminar, I would like to ask you if there is something more that you would like to talk about, or if there's a questions you would like to give to the audience, since we're also different organizations and people here.
Yeah.
So please feel free to do that.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming. But I'd like to know, in terms of, since I work mostly on the food areas, what are the campaigns, what are the issues that, groups here really deal with? Like, for instance, in Nigeria, we deal with a lot of corporate greenwashing. We have corporations trying to write policies, put in their terms. We have our farms being polluted by companies like Shell. I don't know, what are the major issues that you people confront in your work as civil society, and how do you navigate around them?
Yes, I think there will be so many answers towards that. So I would give the floor to maybe two people, could say like one thing that they work with yes. Who would like to go? I can also pick. I would really want Matilda, like from Concord perspective, since we have the environmental working group. So it would be really interesting to have your reflection. Sorry, I put you on the spotlight.
So you want to know like campaigns that groups here support or are engaged in? I can't give a representative answer to that. There are so many different things, but some of us are coordinated through a platform called Concord. We follow quite a lot finance issues, like climate finance and biodiversity finance, for example. So now after this, when the new framework was adopted, one thing will be to look at how it will be funded. And you talked about, for example, the $30 billion pledge. How is that going to be implemented and so on? So those are some of the things, but we work a lot with sort of the international development cooperation issues. So I'm sure there are others here who work more with environmental issues in Sweden.
Yes.
And so maybe someone wants to fill in on that.
Yes, I can also just comment in terms of Africa Group now, what we do. We currently have a campaign on the AP funds, which is also collaborative with other organizations as well, that holds accountable the AP fund pension funds on how it's used, that it shouldn't be used to violate environment and human rights. So that is one of the campaigns to make sure that all the investments that within Sweden that goes to the AP pension fund are more sustainable and environmental friendly as well. So that is one of the campaign, but also awareness building within communities, because in the end of the day, we are the consumers. We are the one who want all the packages, the plastic, the food production, the different things. So it's also like building awareness on terms of as a consumer themselves, but also holding the government accountable when it comes to companies that violate human rights, especially, for example, land grabbing. We have the green resources cases. And I know that in different organizations, there's also different initiatives that maybe not necessarily reflect towards countries within Africa, but also they have partners in Latin America. But in the end of the day, the goal is the same to more a just society. I would like to thank you all, and I hope today was inspiring, but also created a lot of information for you. And yeah, thank you for today. Thank you, Mariann.